Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Demystify Selling with Microsoft. And I'm very excited for our conversation today because it's on a topic that's top of mind for everybody, and it's all around AI. I'd like to introduce my friend Matt Fornito, and Matt is the CEO and founder of AI Advisory Group. So, Matt, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Rob. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, no, looking forward to it. But Matt, before we jump in, maybe you can give everybody a little bit of background on yourself and the AI Advisory Group.
Yeah, we'll go through the whole fun spiel.
Yeah.
So, I came from a background in psychology and sociology, was in a PhD in industrial organizational psychology, and I thought I was going to go into strategy management consulting, right? I would help drive change around people. But I was recruited out as a data scientist, and I did that at Sports Authority, trying to save them. If you remember Sports Authority,
Yep.
I did it for the CEO of Dish, with him spending 15 billion in the FCC Spectrum auction doing geospatial analytics. And then I ultimately started my own consulting firm, right, a data science consulting firm where we could really help organizations in regards to building models and data engineering and all the things that go into that back end ecosystem of creating value. And I was fortunate that we ended up being one of 7 consulting partners worldwide for NVIDIA. And after a few years of doing that and working 80, 120 hours a week, one of their leaders reached out to me and said, "Hey, what do you think about joining the VAR solution integrator space?" I said, "I have no idea what the hell that is." And so they said, "Just talk to this chief revenue officer."
Yeah.
Did. Amazing guy, very strategic thinking, very progressive, forward thinking, and they were one of or wanted to be one of NVIDIA's top partners, and vice versa.
Mhm.
And so I was brought on to build the AI practice at this company called Fusion Storm, which was acquired by Computer Center. And when being able to, for those who don't know the VAR solution integrator side, instead of just being able to do consulting, we could sell hardware and software as well, right? We could look at the entire ecosystem of what a customer needs to be able to help drive change. And so by building the go-to-market strategy, training the account execs on like what to listen for, what actually matters, what are the proof points, values, and pain points that customers may have, we started doing really well. We ended up within 18 months being number one globally in sales with NVIDIA.
Mhm.
And I went to another similar competitor to them after a couple of years, and we did the same thing. We were top 3 with NVIDIA, top 5 with Dell, HPE, Cisco, as well as a lot of the SaaS AI data SaaS companies. And it was because we were not looking at how do we just sell our hardware, how do we just sell our software, how do we sell more GPUs, right?
Right.
Or what is the compute life cycles? It was looking at this as, what are you trying to accomplish? Where do you want to go as an organization? What is not just one use case you want to focus on, but what is the next 3, 5, 10?
Right.
What do you see in regards to your organization being data driven, using data to drive AI initiatives? And that, I think, prognosis really accelerated that journey. And after 7 years of making sales reps really rich, I was like, I should probably do something a little more impactful.
Yeah.
And I have my last little bit of ego, right? I was like, I
Yeah.
want to be a chief data officer. So I went to a Goldman Sachs backed company, and after only like 6 months of being there, the CEO and I were like, this isn't a fit because I have this conceptualization that over the past 2 decades, we've been collecting more and more and more data, but if we're not using data, then what the hell's the point of collecting all this data? And at this organization, they wanted more and more dashboards. And if we're inundating customers with more and more dashboards, more and more information, they cannot have effective decision making. They cannot change their behavior. So it's like, how do we actually shape this where we can drive change? We can help people focus on what actually matters, and then and mitigate all of the noise. And
Right.
so that ended up leading me into starting this AI advisor group. I've been fortunate enough to bring on some phenomenal former Fortune 100 and 500 chief data officers from Meta, from Intel, GlaxoSmithKline, Novartis, Equifax, and there's others that want to join. But I've really wanted to build a really strong culture where we can support one another with our customers. Because another piece of this pie, we can get into any of these pieces that you want to talk about, is that the chief data officer role today has a tenure of 12 to 18 months.
Wow.
And it's so short because one, organizations don't necessarily know what a chief officer does, and they don't know how to measure success. And then they also don't know if that chief data officer needs to be risk averse and focus on security, governance, compliance, MDM, and like lockdown of data, or if they need to be risk prone and look to leverage and create value from data and provide access to more data so people can leverage those insights more rapidly for decision making. And it's hard to like internally be both risk averse and risk prone. And so if you're hiring one person to do that, along with knowing the entire ecosystem of, yes, you need to know security governance and BI and machine learning and AI and large language models and all of these different components. Like, how can you be an expert in this entire ecosystem while you're trying to change the culture to be data driven? And so we looked at this approach as what if we can come in as fractional leaders with 20 plus years of experience across each of us, and we can support each other internally for any gaps that we have so that the customer gets the best experience possible, or we come in doing advisory work where we can guide the leadership team in regards to where are you looking to go and helping drive that change and transformation, because it's so hard from the humanistic side for organizations to actually change, but a lot want to change. A lot want to be data driven. A lot want to leverage AI because we're at the greatest inflection point in history where small, medium businesses, mid cap companies can capitalize and cannibalize market share from large companies that are too slow to pivot if they can use data and AI effectively.
Right. I love that. And that's really, this is why I wanted to have you on this podcast, because I mean, you really, I think you see where this is going, and you've had the experience both sitting in that chief data officer seat as well as sitting in the partner VAR community, or what we refer to in the Microsoft ecosystem as the systems integrator community. And how do we as partners bring value to these customers, these consumers of this data, to really leverage the capability and the really the possibility of AI? I think that's a huge opportunity for the partner community. I think that it's an opportunity for this role as the chief data officer. So I'd love to get your insight on how you see partners fitting into this model, into this change as we move forward with AI.
So let's start with the biggest gaps that I've seen today, because I think that'll lead into where this partner community needs to go. And the gaps are that traditionally, historically speaking, those in the cloud space, the hardware space, maybe the software space,
Mhm.
have been very transactional in nature, right? We were fulfillment centers. It wasn't quite that actual value added reseller, and solution integrators were just the implementers. And it was, yeah, how many licenses do you want? How many GPUs do you want? And so when it was coming from that cognition, that perspective, easy to be transactional, right? And you just build relationships. But now, and the issue remains or persists, that the majority of those organizations have sales teams that still have that mindset. The
Right.
reality is that the customers want a value added reseller. They're also doing their own research, but they don't have time to figure everything out for themselves. And so if they don't know the top 5, top 10 use cases in their vertical or with machine learning or with large language models and like the chat GBTs of the world, then it's be advantageous for an account exec, a BDR and SDR to be able to preliminarily do that research and identify like, okay, well, let's actually talk about value add. Let's not just talk about collecting data and storing data and the computation of data. Let's talk about what we can do with the data. And maybe that means that this partner community needs a field CTO or field CDO or someone that can talk at that like leadership level that can get deep into the weeds of that strategy and vision. But if you're not helping that customer like understand what the art of the possible is and where you can go as an organization if you use data and AI, and even including quantifiable metrics, which means that AEs can't just build relationships and go golfing anymore. You have to spend time like understanding the space, doing research, like
Yeah.
knowing that like what the competitive market looks like, because I can guarantee if someone in your industry or if 80% of your industry is doing something, then you know you're a laggard and you need to get ahead and you can inform the customer that they're behind in this way. But if they don't know that, then they don't know that they have this gap. And then 5, 10 years down the road, they're wondering why they're floundering.
Right. I mean, it's such a shift in the mindset, really. You're going from as an account executive, BDR, SDR, from having that sort of transactional mindset that you talked about to now having to actually think, okay, how could I bring value to that business and how could we help them leverage the kind of data or kind of information that's out there? So it really is it's a real transition, I think, for partners.
Well, I agree, but and I think like there's a really interesting component to it. So I'm not sponsored by Perplexity AI, but what I love about them and ChatGPT is working towards it with their new Search GPT is the ability to collect data and information from the web, right?
Mhm.
And for instance, we're trying to automate 80% of our company because I want my CDOs to spend time with our customers, with our team. I want them to be the most impactful people they can be, not spend time worrying about like what to put in CRM or how to create a statement of work or any of those things that like are, we'll say, conceptually mundane. Because at the end of the day, if you're creating a statement of work, it's based on all of the conversations you've had during discovery to figure out what a customer needs. And if all of that is transcript and auditorily collected, then we should be able to shift that into automatically creating a document for that. And that's one piece of what AI can do. But when we also talk about the sales rep side, it's how do you foster and build better relationships with your customers or with your prospects? And so when I say we're automating 80% of our company, we do this from the perspective of what eats up all of my time or what eats up all of my willpower, energy, cognition.
Yeah.
Because if it's either of those and I can automate it, then I should. And so we have done that for sales and research briefs. So our research briefs are for prospects that want to meet and see if they're a good fit for what we can provide. And we use Perplexity AI and APIs under the hood and all these fun little connections, but it goes directly into our calendar of this full web scrape of the person, their LinkedIn, any information about them that's on the web, on the company, their blogs. Like, what do they care about? What are they doing right now? So that I'm not coming in and saying, hey, who are you? What do you need?
Right.
I can come in and say, hey, I saw that you guys just launched this new initiative. How is that going? And are you struggling in any of these ways? And so, like, being able to come more impactfully to that, and I don't have to spend 30 to 60 minutes doing hands-on research now, or if I'm a bad rep, do no research. Now I can just read a sales brief in 5 minutes and like be hyper prepared for the meeting to be able to help accelerate that prospects or customers journey. And I think like that's how we need to start thinking about AI. It's not just this back end data scientists can build a model to predict churn. It's what can we do as individuals to more impactfully foster relationships with our team, with our prospects, with our customers.
I love that because it's starting at a place where it's less of a jump. So when you think about using large language models or machine learning to get to a place where you're re-engineering the entire business or re-engineering how you look at different processes, you're looking at what am I doing today that I can automate using AI? So as an example, in the Microsoft world, can we use Copilot to, as you said, build these statements of work, which are things we do every day that are, not mentally taxing, but need to be done and they take time. If we can collapse those really straightforward business processes into an automated cycle where it gets done, it's available to us in short order without having a lot of our own personal mental energy. That's a huge win and a smaller leap, I think, for new customers to take as they're going down this AI journey. Um, and it also, like, as partners are thinking about building um, AI or uh, to building AI applications on, say, Azure OpenAI, starting at that place where it is these more straightforward business processes that can be automated. It gives everybody that first sort of dip their toe in the water.
Well, and I think about it as, and it's something that's near and dear to my heart that time is our most valuable asset. I had a 10-month concussion that put me out, to the effect that I thought my life was over, my career was over. I was leading an AI practice at a multi-billion-dollar company, and it's like, what am I going to do? I can't work 80, 100, 120 hours a week anymore. And I looked at using AI and automation, and I also looked at this aspect of noise, right? We're, I think, conditioned to do the easy stuff, the checklist, to just go and send a bunch of emails
Right.
or whatever the heck that is in your task list, project manager, notepad. But when I looked at it as, okay, if, and anyone can do this exercise, if I can only work 5, 10, 20 hours a week, what do I focus on? What is the most impactful? And if I say everything else is noise, can I still be successful? And the fact that one, no one at my organization, even though I told the C suite and the board, no one at the organization knew my concussion continued persisting for 10 months. No one knew that I was continuing to struggle with memory issues, energy, migraines, fatigue, because all they saw was that I was driving real impact by focusing on what was important. And so when like taking that perspective of, okay, there are things that we have to do and we should, and that are, we'll just call them dumb, right? That we should automate. If I can have an intern do this, if I can teach a 10-year-old to do this, we shouldn't be doing that, right? That is below who we have become and we have experience in regards to building relationships or helping customers on their journey or fulfilling orders in a meaningful way that drives wow experiences. And so when we look at AI and automation, I think, and hopefully, we'll start seeing data science teams, data engineering teams coexisting more with the functional groups within the organization, with sales, with marketing, with product, because that's my idealized vision. If we look at customer centricity first and go, what do our customers need? What do they actually need? What do they actually use? What are they trying to solve? What are their pain points? We build marketing messaging around that. We sell to that. We build products that facilitate that and we use data and AI to augment that, and we're really helping drive change. And if the data science teams, if the machine learning teams are sitting in these silos, then we have to hope that it is getting trickled down in regards to what they're building. Because if not, and I've done this exercise before, if I go into a room of 100 CTOs and CDOs and CIOs, and I ask them, raise your hand if you've been on a customer call in the past year, what do you think you see?
Right. Oh my
It's like,
goodness.
how do you become impactful? How do you understand your customer? How are you building for the business if you don't know what the business actually needs, what the customers actually need, and you're hypothesizing what the heck you should build? Like, that is so problematic for how we've constructed data science and engineering over the past 2 decades that we have to resolve this issue because if we can, then we create impact. And then it's not a cost center for that team. They can get whatever the hell they want because now they can say, "Hey, we did that use case. It's 100 million in additional revenue per year. Can we get 5 million for these next 3 use cases?" Who's going to say no to that?
Right. Yeah. And what a realization. I mean, that is so critical to collapse the space between these CDOs, CIOs, and the business. You know, bringing them together where they're actually seeing what the experience is for their customers, and being able to build with that firsthand knowledge versus, as you said, sort of hypothesizing on what's needed. Um,
It, we'll say it's been a painful endeavor, and I mean, like I've experienced, right? I've built models and even had buy-in, right? Because a lot of times those data teams don't get the buy-in, and so
Yeah.
You wonder why 50 to 90% of AI projects fail. It's Microsoft's technology is amazing, right? There's great data scientists out there. There's amazing software stacks out there, and so if you have the data and you have the people and you have the technology, then why are they failing? And it's this people and process issue. It's if people aren't bought in, if they don't know how to leverage this, if they're not educated on like what this means or how they should change their behavior outcomes, then it doesn't matter how good or accurate the model is. It's going to just sit there or be dropped in totality, and that so that becomes so problematic, right? And there's still issues of friction. I built a a model that was guaranteed 500 million additional revenue per year, and the CEO said, "No, I'm going to go on my gut." And it's like, but we have proof, we have data. And like, I know your gut's like probably right 70, 80, 90% of the time, but we have data that can ensure that you're right nearly
Yeah.
like much more significantly than your own gut. And so it's like, why would you go that route? And so there's often a lack of like mistrust in data or what AI can do or what the outcomes of that are. And so part of the job of maybe it's partners, maybe it's the data and AI teams, maybe it's organizations um, getting an evangelist or educator, but you need a bridge between tech and business. You need someone who can understand how all this back end works and how this drives outcomes and be able to educate and evangelize around what this means for the organization. Because let's say we build a churn model and we can build it with 100% accuracy. We know all the features that are driving customers to churn. If we take the normal approach and just build it and implement it, and we don't ask people to change their behaviors, what do you think happens? We're going to suffer the same consequences that we've always suffered.
Right.
It's the definition of insanity. But if we look at it as, okay, we have an educator, an evangelist, and it could be a data scientist, it could be a CDO, CAIO, it could just be someone who wanted to be the champion for the organization around AI. But to say that connecting bridge of, hey, we're going to build this model, and after this model's built, we're going to do X, Y, and Z to ensure that we reduce customer churn by 5 to 10% because that model predicts 20%. So I want to see at least a 50% lift of that over the course of the next 18 months.
Right. I love that. And it kind of, I just want to rewind and touch on how I think that integrates with what you said earlier around, focusing on those things that are most important, focusing on the sort of our real, true top priorities, and everything else is noise. And when we can do that, when we can focus on the outcomes of those most important tasks, I mean, it just changes the game. It's like a hockey stick of your results. If you can get the scale and the focus on those things that make the most difference to your business, the most difference to those business outcomes you're looking for, versus just the mundane tasks that keep us busy, 8 9 hours a day, and we're only spending 15 to 30 minutes on the real tasks.
Well, and I mean, like, and part of it is that there's this assumption that to be more successful, we need to work more. And like, I, I felt half the books behind me are like productivity and motivation theory books, like and other types of org psych books. And when 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 I tried implementing it, I felt I did really well. Like when I had my company, my first company, from 7 a.m. to midnight, had 15-minute blocks for everything, right? And so like hyper productive. But if you look at Baumeister's a phenomenal social psychologist. If you look at his research on willpower, it's that like people only have like 2 to 4 hours worth of like good, meaningful, impactful like work or energy per day, right? Like we try to act like, yes, we can be impactful all the time, but it's burning the candle at both ends, right? And so instead of just filling your entire day of 8 hours, you could do 2 hours of really meaningful work and blow all of your colleagues out of the water. And that's such a wild conceptualization of work, right? It's like we've looked at it as hours because the Industrial Revolution necessitated that, but we can now look at it as impact because if I worked, let's just say it was 1 hour to drive 100x impact for an organization, do they care that I only worked 1 hour if I could create that type of impact? And so there needs to be that conceptualization change. The other piece too that organizations need to think about, and I think the partner ecosystem at large too, when we talk about things like Copilot, are when I run these executive workshops, one of the things I talk about, especially with like use case ideation and ROI, is are you looking at ROI as in you want cost savings or profit, like revenue increase, and we can do that, or do you want return on employee? Do you want people to focus on the meaningful? Do you want everyone at your organization to have 10 hours back per week? Because if you want to focus on ROI, then you should do structured data. You should do machine learning. It's easy, it's fast, way quicker than any deep learning or large language model will be to build something, unless you're like hyper accelerated in your AI journey and maturity. And if it's ROI, it's like process efficiencies, cost savings, like easy stuff, right? But if you say, we want our people to each have 10 hours back per week, because that's one of the things that we can purport to do. We say, we get everyone 10 hours back per week. That's not just a 25% instantaneous ROI, which does have an ROI, right?
Mhm.
But it means that if they get 10 hours back per week and they learn to not just fill that with more noise, but do what's actually impactful, what's actually important, what actually moves the needle, what do you think the ROI is? Because it's hard to actually maximize and conceptualize that if you looked across the board, because like 1% lift in a campaign in means that it might be more than 1% lift in regards to the BDR SDR funnel, which means like the cut, like you might have faster sales life cycles and greater total bills and longer customer lifetime value. And so, like, all of this exponentially increases if you're focusing on what matters. And so, thinking about ROI versus ROE is something that organizations really have to understand of what they want to do. Is like, if you want a if you want large language models, if you want people to use AI in their day to day, then they need to be taught how to leverage it effectively. It's not write an email for me, like, because
Right.
it's not your voice and you'll spend more time revising that. It's not write a blog post because it's not your voice or the brand voice of the company. It's like really building impactful digital twins. It's building automation. It's building virtual assistants. It's building multi-agent ecosystems that can communicate with one another to automate a lot of that mundane. Or from that virtual assistant side or digital twin, it's to bring information and data to you and help augment your decision making. And that's where this return on employee space needs to go. As opposed to just using the standard chat GPT that people are like, yeah, I used it
Yeah,
for
right.
something. Be like, did you have any impact? Be like, no.
Well, to me, that brings this whole conversation full circle when it comes to the partner ecosystem. Is that if I'm a partner wanting to help my clients with artificial intelligence, with AI, Copilot, developing new applications, I really need to be able to hold and have that conversation of ROI versus ROE, because to me, that's a fundamental difference. And I think that that's one of the challenges that I see partners being faced with is just what you referred to is like, oh, why would I want Copilot? I don't, just writing emails. Well, no, that's not really what you're going to be thinking about. Can you build a Copilot that focuses on ROE, which changes the game dramatically? To your point, if you can get those 10 hours a week back for every employee and keep them away from the noise, that just changes the entire equation for your business.
And I think that's that'll be what we'll be looking at over the next few years is, do data science teams, when we talk about success, when we talk about how do we generate wins, are they connected to ROI? So if you're selling into, like, the CIO, the CTO, CDO side, which is probably the majority of folks, um, then ensuring that those data scientists, machine learning engineers, whoever's leading that group has already assessed the ROI, and that there are next steps like curated in regards to what needs to be done for any of the end users. that's going to generate success on that end, which means that if you generate success, then they start getting more buy-in and more trust, which means that other groups start going to them and saying, hey, can you solve this problem? And so you
Right.
get the cyclical effect of utilization, which means more software licenses, more compute, more storage, like all of the things that actually matter should start first with strategy and the ROI that goes and ties to all those things, and then you can create success. If you're looking at this side of like, how do we get Copilot success? How do we get OpenAI's success, as long as this relationship continues successfully? Like, it's you. There has to be substance to leveraging this because right now these things are platforms, and people in general don't know how to use platforms. It's like looking at a blank Word doc and saying, "Write a blog post," and go, "What do I write about?" And go, "Anything you want." They
Right.
go, "Okay, I don't know where to start." And go, that's like almost every like if you're a writer, you're like, "Oh, I love this. I know how to use this. This is a great tool. I love Microsoft Word." But if
Mhm.
you're not a writer, if you've never used a tool or platform like that, then it's like, what the heck
Yeah.
do I do? And so how like there has to be this, it's not just saying like, yes, let's buy licenses and then you'll be successful. It's saying we need to help people identify where are you wasting your time, where are you wasting your energy or your cognition, so that you can use automation or a digital twin or whatever the heck it is that's using these large language models, which are phenomenal. I haven't used Google search in 3 months. I have a hot encoded button on my phone. I don't have to use, I don't have to go out for information. Information can come to me based on the things that I've built. And like that provides so much more value to me because now I don't have to go do all of this research. I don't have to look when Chick-fil-A stops serving breakfast, right? It's like it can be mundane things, but to not even have to go scroll through Chick-fil-A's page to like find that out means that I got the information I needed in 3 seconds as opposed to 3 to 5 minutes. And if that's everything you do, if you have to open 10 web pages to find something, then it's like you're wasting all this time trying to find the needle in the haystack that you want to find, as opposed to being able to use these and say, hey, I'm trying to find or understand this, or I need a statistic on this, or I'm want to create a campaign or a strategy. Can you help me? And like being able to understand how to do that effectively through prompting means that like you get so much more time back because even if it only gets you 60, 80% of the way there, you're not staring at a blank page anymore. You can go, I love this. Oh, this is not what I would do. And you can start tweaking that, which means like you have that momentum to actually get things done.
Mhm. No, I love that, and I think this is it's a really valuable lessons in here for Microsoft partners to start to understand how to engage customers, and even rolling back to the account executives and the BDRs and SDRs is how to hold those conversations early on in the discussions. It's a new world and a new sort of talk track that we have to have, not one that's transactional in nature, but one that's more strategy, thinking about that return on both investment and the return on employees. So I think this is fantastic. Matt, as we come to sort of the conclusion here, is there one sort of key point or takeaway that you think a Microsoft partner focused on AI as part of their business should be taking into consideration or integrating into their business model going forward?
Um, I, I think it depends on what type of organization you are, and is that you do custom services and builds? Are you a platform or do you solve a solution? And so, looking at those three ways, like if if you have a platform, then you need to like get the buy-in and excitement from those people who would be using the platform and know their pain points backwards and forwards, to the extent of saying like, hey, I know that you waste time doing this or you get frustrated doing this. um, like we could talk about the back end for coders and being able to use these like AI LLMs to just say, hey, I want to build this product feature, like can you add that in, right? And the fact that it can do that like successfully, that's monumental in regards to where we're going at this expedience of being able to build like MVPs or proof of concepts. Like
Right.
my for my keynote in Logitech, we are building a RAG agent on the fly. My CTO is on the side while I present, building a RAG agent during my presentation that people can ask questions to by the end of the talk. And to say, like, oh, we can go and scrape like all of Logitech's manuals and be able to build this agent that we can input all that into a vector database and be able to answer any questions, which means like that would have taken 6 to 12 months for a company before, and we can do it in under an hour with one person. Like that's insane. And so like like helping people understand how they can use platforms really impactful. If you're, a solution vendor solving a specific problem, don't open up the floodgates and say we can solve everything. Because if you say you can do everything, then you can't do anything well. But if
Yeah.
people trust that you can do one thing extremely well, they'll trust that you can do everything extremely well. And
Yeah.
so coming that from that perspective of like we we help executives transform their organization, right? And we help people get 10 hours back per week. Like if we look at it as that, yes, we have advisory, we have fractional, we have executive workshops, but like those are how we do it. It's the what we do and the impact we can create that you need to sell.
Right.
And then if your services, it's like it's really being able to be in the driver's seat, and instead of going up to a prospect or a customer and saying, "Hey, what do you want us to build?" And you'll get some of those from that inbound side. But if you go up to them and say, and I hate the question, what's keeping you up at night? But if you go from that perspective of, hey, where are you struggling? Where are you wasting money? Where are you wasting time? Where are you frustrated? What's like eating up all of your energy? And then saying, okay, we can resolve this, and here's how we're going to do it. And like this next to be in the driver's seat and say, here's what we're going to do, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this with you, right?
Yeah.
To not have to put all of the energy and workload on the person to figure out what they need to do and to be able to drive that, like that's what customers really really appreciate, because I want people that I can just trust to deliver. And if I know like I want stronger marketing campaigns and somebody approaches me, and I had this happen actually. They built a landing page of my company. They built a 5 email sequence and they said, hey, what do you think of this? Like, I'd love to do this for your company. And the fact that they did that as a prospect, they built a landing page, they built like an email like to drive essentially inbound customers,
Yeah.
like that's impactful. And it means like I don't have to try to validate if you can do your job. I don't have to wonder like, is this going to be good or not? I already know like you went above and beyond and you drove this, so I can trust you to actually deliver.
Right. I think it goes back to that earlier conversation we had about showing up and being able to talk strategy, talk to the actual problems versus transaction of how many boxes, how many GPUs, and move away from that and really think about, to your point, how can I change how you do business? And so I love that, Matt. So thanks for that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and Matt, as we're kind of wrapping up here, where can people find you, learn more about you? Is LinkedIn a great place to go to connect with you and to learn more about Matt?
Yeah. So if you want to learn more about the company and the team composition, our website is the AIAG.com. So the AIAG for AI Advisory Group.com. And I'm Matt Fornito on LinkedIn. And one of the things that I'm deeply passionate about, having been on the solution integrator, having been on the VAR side, working with tons of OEMs and cloud providers, is what we're talking about here, right? I've trained probably thousands of reps and teams at this point, because having that mindset of like transformation value add, like having the ability to do discovery and be trusted, and to like not even have to be concerned about looking foolish, because customer actually gets like excited talking with you about these things because you ask the right questions. Like I do love doing that, and I do that. So if partners are interested in that, like that's one of the things I actually do for partners. But generally, what I really really am passionate with is that we can drive change management, we can drive transformation within organizations, we can help people be their best selves, and be able to like spend time with their family or with their teams or on their mental well-being or physical well-being, by getting more time back by focusing on what's important. And so this AI and automation era, essentially, it's going to be so impactful and so transformational for the teams and organizations that do it. And like the reason I say I know I can promise 10 hours back per week is because our team already gets 50 hours back per week. And I know by the time we automate everything, we'll be at, I'll be somewhere between 120 to 200 hours per week. And it's like, I could technically, I wouldn't, I'd lose my mind, but like I could technically not work and I'm still producing 3 to 5 people's impact, of work. Right. And
Yeah.
like, that's insane. And so if we can actually focus on what really matters, what really drives this, and leverage these tools and technologies to do the things that actually matter, to be able to have these conversations, to spend more time with customers, that's my like that's my dream. And if we can get there, then we're winning.
No, that is amazing. And I mean, that is a mission that really has meaning behind it. So I love what you're doing, Matt. I appreciate you joining me today. And I hope that the Microsoft partner community finds a lot of value and they reach out and connect with you because they can learn a ton from you. So with that, Matt, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thanks, Rob. I appreciate it.
Take care.